Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Hybrid Friends. Today we will talk about ArcBox and Arc Jumpstart, and with me is the absolute expert and owner of the whole stuff, Lior. So everyone, just listen to him. And Lior, would you be so kind and introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, Flo. My name is Lior Kamrat. I'm a principal product manager in the Edge and Platform organization. My role has multiple, I basically wear multiple hats. I do a lot of things when it comes to the community. So things like this type of conversations, but also I'm the lead for everything that's got to do with the Jumpstart and which we're going to talk about today. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Perfect. And so as you already had in our previous discussion, it's Arc and Jumpstart is a hidden gem. So we all, or at least within the hybrid space from Microsoft and also a lot of partners are using it, but it's not widely known throughout the whole globe. And so what's the history behind all that stuff? What's the thought process? Why did you think we are lacking, or what it is anyway? And why did you thought in the past we are lacking such a great product?
I think that the Jumpstart started more than 3 years ago, and when it started, it was basically the origin of this was to provide automated experience for bootstrapping Azure Arc environments in an basically in automated fashion. If you will look at the Azure Docs today, and if you will look at Azure Arc in general. The idea behind Azure Arc is, we're touching everything that is outside of Azure. So, if you look at VMware environments or look at Kubernetes clusters that are outside of Azure, but net or, multi-cloud with GCP and AWS, but net is that the fact that we are touching resources that are outside of Azure. Now, if you go to our documentations today, you will never going to see something that is like, hey, let us teach you how to do something in VMware, or let us teach you how to do something in GCP or AWS. Like, it's not something that we do, and there's an obvious reason behind that. But Azure Arc is a bit different. Now, when I started working on Azure Arc 4 years ago, I thought to myself, well, how do I actually go by and start to play with this, but in a way that maybe customers will use that? So I started with VMware because that was just background and all that, and I started to automate this. And I did one automation and then another one and then another one. And I started to have this notion of scenarios. I bundled those together, put those in GitHub. And then I had multiple kind of people starting to join forces with me. And, to make a long story short, we formalized the Jumpstart team a few years back. And that was really the origin of this, is what it was about, providing people with a way to bootstrap environments without going through tedious documentations and just have one-click deployment. So, yeah, that was the origin.
It also gives a bit of background how sometimes product creation with Microsoft works. So there's someone like you having a great idea, joining others, or others would join you. And then it's like, oh, it's amazing. It's an amazing collection of scripts, or it's an amazing internal or community project. And then there's someone says, oh, can we make that a product?
Yeah.
And and so what do you use it, or what your customers or our customers should use it for? Is it what's the whole use case you're seeing?
Yeah, the Jumpstart is really, there are multiple use cases that we are covering. But if you're thinking about it from a simplicity standpoint, if you have a situation where you need to build a fast POC, if you need to build a demo environment, if you want to understand what I like to call the art of the possible with Azure Arc, there is a Jumpstart scenario for you. As of today, we have more than 120 scenarios. I think almost 130 scenarios. And we'll talk more about our box and HCI box and the things that we're coming with. But these scenarios are really about touching those use cases that I mentioned. And it doesn't matter which space or background you're coming from, whether you are coming from a background of IT or you're more in the, just kind of DevOps or CI and, CI/CD or SREs background, there is something for you, or coming from a data background. All these scenarios are designed to complement also the personas. So yeah, I mean, this is really kind of where we sit. Now, what we saw is that the way that it kind of evolved with the Jumpstart is that people stopped using it just for their dev environments or their demo environments. They actually started to think about it from training and how they're building practices around that and all that. And a very good example to that will be if you go to the Azure Landing Zone accelerators today. If you just gonna give you a bit of a maybe an Easter egg here. We were the first one, like the reason that landing zones changed their name to accelerators was because of the first accelerators for Azure Arc. When we created Azure Arc Landing Zone accelerators, as of today, we have 3 inside the documentation, since on the Cloud Adoption Framework. We actually thought about, okay, so how do you, because that you have all these, for other services, you have all these Terraform templates and ARM templates and Bicep templates, but we thought to ourselves, okay, so how do you do that for an Azure Arc environment that does not live inside Azure? And the way to do that is by creating a simulated deployment or a simulated automation in order for you to provide a reference implementation for that landing zone accelerator, those critical design areas that we provided. And that was the reason for the name accelerator, because we were trying to accelerate basically the adoption. And that's where we basically merged forces with the Cloud Adoption Framework team. And we were like, okay, let's use ArcBox, which is, kind of our first product after the Jumpstart scenarios, as the reference implementation for those accelerators. So anyway, just an interesting anecdote there, just kind of connecting the dots. So
when I'm listening to you, it's it does not sound like I need to have heavy Terraform or Bicep skills. So what are the requirements to start with the Jumpstart, to start with the Arc boxes, or start with my preferred scenario?
Yeah, honestly, the requirements, we always had very simple design principles. The main requirement, if you're thinking about ArcBox for a second, or HCI box, all you need is an Azure subscription. That's really what you need. You don't need to know, you don't need to be expert in Bicep or expert in Terraform or expert in ARM or whatnot. If you want to contribute to the project, sure, you need to know those stuff because that's what we're building our automation on. But as long as you know how to deploy a Terraform template or deploy a Bicep template, which is literally a single command, you should be good. And as long as you have an Azure subscription. So yeah, when it comes to the Jumpstart scenarios, if you're doing Jumpstart scenarios that are touching environments that are not in Azure. So for example, if you want to do a Jumpstart scenario that is around scale onboarding for GCP instances or VMware virtual machines, sure, you need to have those environments because our automations are built, considering the fact or relying on the fact that you have these type of environments. So those are going to be the prerequisites, nothing more than that.
So basically, a little bit of knowledge and maybe an MSDN subscription or partner subscription with $150 would work.
Yeah, I mean, $150 will work for a certain amount of time because at the end of the day, we are deploying resources in Azure, so it really depends. But yeah, it should be more than enough for you to spin up an environment and run it for maybe a couple of days for you to do what you need to do, and then just delete the resource group because everything is encapsulated inside a single resource group. That's always the case.
Oh, sounds amazing. Yeah. And can you tell us a bit about the future of your product, the ideas you want to have, or the road you want to go for the future with it?
Yeah, so we actually have a few exciting things coming out later this month, actually. And if you look at if you are a user of Jumpstart today, you already know this, or you're new to the project. But until today, the Jumpstart was very much kind of product oriented, right? The scenarios that we had were around, or that we have are around, how do you enable a scenario with the context of a technology? So Azure Arc-enabled servers with VMware, or Azure Arc-enabled Kubernetes with OpenShift, or deploy Arc-enabled data services with, on top of Azure Stack HCI, right? Or AKS on Azure Stack HCI. But those scenarios are very laser focused on enable you with the technology. So the things that we are working on right now is, how do we actually take it to the next level when it comes to industry scenarios and developer velocity? Meaning, how do we provide end-to-end experience for not just the infrastructure and just Azure Arc, but actually how do we provide automations that are giving you also a line of sight to the business logic, to the line of business applications, and also as part of that, how do we show you processes like full CI/CD flows for these type of applications, and security posture, and also IoT integrations with everything that's got to do with a single scenario. So that's what we are coming up with in the next few weeks. So pretty excited about that, and watch for those announcements coming soon.
Wow, sounds great. So, yeah. Last question. Any pro tip you have, any resource you would recommend to the audience to leverage when they're starting, or when they're already a pro? So is that any resource, any pro tip from your end?
Yeah, I think that if you're just getting started with Azure Arc, definitely the Jumpstart has become kind of the de facto standard, right? We talked about it, but I also mentioned the landing zone accelerators, which to me, I take a lot of pride of the work that we did for the landing zone accelerators, because they are basically covering a lot of ground when it comes to the details. Those critical design areas that we built for, we have one accelerator for Arc-enabled servers, one for Kubernetes, and another one for SQL managed instance as part of data services. And if you go to these scenarios, those accelerators, you will see that there is a lot of details there. So I highly recommend for you to go and check it out if you want to start, or you want to better understand the architecture behind what we're doing. But if you're one of these people that are not just about the architecture and the pretty pictures, but also about the hands-on, honestly, I would just go to the Jumpstart and go from there. Try ArcBox, try HCI Box, try the scenarios, and obviously the new things that we're coming up with, because those will give you this feeling that a lot of people are missing. And again, especially in the context of Azure Arc, where you are doing things against resources that are outside of Azure, a lot of people just don't have access to that. If they're trying to build a training or trying to build a demo or a POC, sometimes they just need something that will live in an ephemeral fashion inside their subscription. So that's what we're providing with the Jumpstart. So that's why I highly recommend for you to go and start there and move your way up the stack.
Perfect. That would be all my dumb questions for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And I will provide more of your resources. I will provide all the links, everything you've mentioned in the description. And yeah, amazing.
Thank you for having me.
So hopefully we can have another chat, maybe a bit deeper on your specific scenarios when as soon as you release them. For everyone else, if you want to see more of Lior or of the other hybrid fans, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment with questions and what topics you want to see, and yeah, maybe ring the bell. Thank you so much, Lior.
Thank you.